I'm Tim. So I'm from Kemp, and what I do at Kemp is I support the UK channel when it comes to MSPs and service providers. Kemp provides application delivery control. It's our responsibility to make sure that your applications are working the way they should do, effectively, so you have a good application experience. We're going to explain that in a bit more detail, hopefully, over the next few moments.
Nick. You stand up. So my name is Nick Kimber. For those of you who can now see me, I'm here. Hello. I'm an end user account manager for Commscope. What that means is that I feel solely responsible for end user customers. Commscope is an infrastructure company, recently acquired Ruckus Networks, so it's all about both the active equipment, wireless and switching, and the passive, which is cable infrastructure, and how that all becomes one solution moving forward. Thank you.
I have to stand up now, don't I?
I'll go again.
Yeah. Do you want to stand up too? I have quite a loud voice, so I'm a bit worried about the feedback on that. Just hold it over there, Richard. Hi, I'm Olivia from StorageCraft. I'm responsible for the EMEA channel. For those of you who don't know me already in the room and don't know StorageCraft already, we're a data management disaster recovery company. We are EMEA HQ'd in Cork in Ireland. I live in Hampshire, just to really confuse people with my accent and our team in Cork. And yeah, looking forward to a great afternoon.
Cool. Good afternoon. I'm Andy Bodgan, so I head up the UK channel at Kaspersky. Kaspersky, well, we're the largest privately owned security company. We're known for a lot of things, generally AV, consumer, and being Russian. All of them are absolutely correct, but there's a lot more to us. So yeah, look forward to this afternoon, look forward to the questions.
Cool, so let's kick things off. I wanted to make this as interactive as possible. You don't want this brumming just talking at you. So if you've got any questions at any point during the session, just put your hands up and I'll come to you as soon as I possibly can, yeah? I guess the first question for the audience, who in the room, quick show of hands, would classify themselves as a managed service provider, an MSP? So a handful. Any cloud service providers in the room? No? Yeah, a couple of CSPs. Any ISPs, internet service providers? A couple at the back there, fantastic. So I guess my first question is, we've pitched this event here as empowering the xSP. What on earth is an xSP? And Tim, I'm going to pick on you first, because you were the first person I heard that used this term. What's an xSP?
Had a good look, Tim.
It wasn't me, it was Andy.
Andy dodged the bullet.
Yeah, what we found that when we start looking at all of the different types of partners that we deal with, and all of the different services that you're delivering to your customers, actually trying to categorise what you do and how you deliver it was becoming quite difficult. I mean, my badge, fortunately, I had one pre-made. I've got CSP, MSP. I ran out of room. I could have put MSSP, I could have put ISP. There's so many different variations that we've now got to identify the services that companies like yourselves are delivering, that we found that the X would be an encompassment of all of those. So the key part really is the services that you are providing. What is it that you deliver to make those services effective for your customers? And we're kind of now seeing within the industry that we work within, there's so many ways to determine that X has become the generic approach. It's not trying to alleviate anybody, it's not trying to take anybody out of that group, but it just gives us a bit more of an all-encompassing approach to the services that you're delivering.
Andy, do you want to answer that?
To be honest, it's exactly that. As it happens in our own organisation, xSP stands for the telco market. But quite like Tim said, there's so many different terminologies and variations of a service provider now. It's quite commonly when you use X as being, X could be anything. So we kind of come up with that idea of empowering the xSP. Not sure it's going to trend, but it's kind of where we see the service provider market today. And the more and more services evolve and the more and more technologies that people then deliver as services, it makes it a lot easier to sit there and explain an overall marketplace.
Yeah. Actually, another question for the room, and shout this out, mate. What do you call yourselves as a company to your clients and to other IT companies? MSP, XP, anything else that I've missed out there? technology service providers, the IT guy, what do your clients tend to refer to you as? As a managed service provider, for instance, they want their clients to know them as a trusted advisor, a technology service provider for the business. So I think it's interesting what we call ourselves and what our clients refer to us as sometimes can be two completely different things. But I think, as you say, it doesn't really matter as long as our clients actually trust us for these things. But on the token of what an XSP, MSP, whatever you want to call yourself is, Olivia, if I can turn to you, what makes a good partner for StorageCraft? What do you look for from the beautiful people in the room here?
Yeah, no, we would like to turn that question around to what people look for in a good vendor as opposed to what's a good partner. I'm not sure you can define what a good partner looks like.
So I want to come back to what Olivia said about what partners want from vendors, but I do want to put you on the spot. Nick, I'm going to ask you, well, let me flip the question around. What irritates you about partners? What do partners ask you for that you think, hey, this is a partnership? What do you get sick of hearing from partners?
Do you want to be honest about that?
I want you to be absolutely honest about it.
Begins with M.
Careful, Nick.
I think from my point of view, because I'm going to be very politically correct here, is that the MSP market in our area is growing a lot because we're seeing it's not now about just selling product. It's about selling a whole managed service. I think what we as a vendor see is hard is partners not giving us as a vendor enough information about what they're working on.
Yeah.
So what tends to happen is that you get, we've got this opportunity, and this opportunity presents itself as X and Y, but it's got A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, everything else, but we're not told that. And then when things happen that they want pricing, they want this, they want that, and it turns out actually there's a whole bunch of things that the customer's asking for that we're not getting told from the partner. And I think as a vendor, we can help you to win more if you engage us right at the beginning with the customer about what's required, because sometimes an MSP is working on something for the first time, and it might be that we've got years and years of expertise in that area, and we want to bring that to you to help you to win the business as well. So it's about being more open and transparent about what the opportunity is. That's my biggest bugbear.
Yeah. There's sometimes a lack of trust though, isn't there?
And there is.
We don't want it, so we don't want the first conversation there. I've got this opportunity to say, who is it? Who's the customer? Who's the contact? What's his telephone number? What's his email address?
Yeah.
There's a bit of mistrust there.
There is.
Now, actually, going back to what you want for a vendor, actually, StorageCraft, who I've got experience on, very tactile with their resellers. They're very tactile. There's a lot of touch points because you're a relatively small team, I suppose.
So, John, for the benefit of the people about John has just said, sometimes there can be a lack of trust at the start of the vendor relationship. The vendors ask them lots of questions about who the client is.
You've got your favoured resellers, haven't you? And there's always a deep-rooted feeling that we're not sure that we've ring-fenced our opportunity.
Yeah.
That we're sharing too much information too early on with you.
And that's down to us to make sure our processes are right to make you feel comfortable.
What are you giving us? What have we got to gain from giving you all that information?
Yeah. Well, I think from our point of view is making sure that, one, we've got to build that trust, and it doesn't happen overnight, okay? But we've got to have the right processes to allow you to feel comfortable that if you register a deal, it's not going to go to my mate John next door because I think he can do a better deal. And that's the biggest trust thing that we've got to. There are going to be conflicts, and there are going to be areas where the customer says, I tell you what, even though a partner might have bought it, I want this open up to every man and his dog, and I want a flat playing field. And it's having open conversations with partners about that. But where there is an opportunity that's not been registered before, that's there, we've got to have the right processes in place to give you the ability to say, I feel comfortable at the moment. If something else happens, I've got a way of being able to go back to the vendor and say, oi, this has happened now. Why has this happened? We want a way of being able to process against that.
Do you think maybe there's a point in what was said, but maybe we're asking for some of the wrong information by saying phone number, details, and actually we should be asking more about the project first to help and get the trust rather than give me all this detail.
Let's address the question then. So shout out to me, what do you want from a vendor? Honesty. You engage with a new vendor. Mark.
Honesty.
Honesty. Yeah. Shout out.
Transparency.
Transparency. I expected you to share NFRs and discounts. So interestingly, in my experience, often from this side of the fence, what I hear is, partners want to discounts and they want this and they want that before they've developed the relationship. And from this side, they say, well, if we need NFRs to go ahead and to do these things. So that's interesting about this discounts. Anything else?
Protection.
Tell me more.
Like deal registers, process like that. So if we find opportunity, how do you protect work collaboratively?
Yeah. So let's dig into that, Jason. If I can push across to you, Fed.
Okay.
How do you support partners with some of the things that I've just said? trust and transparency, protection, deal registration, things like that.
From a distributor's point of view, I think we are. Well, we are the glue between, I guess, yourselves and the vendor. Who pays us? You do. So, I guess the ball falls in your camp. We will be loyal and we will help a reseller along the way to make sure that, any project they're working on is successful for them, gets deal registered to them, and is worked through them. We add value along the way by, providing technical support, and that technical support could be, web access for your customers. It could be providing a proof of concept kit if there's pieces of hardware involved. It could be, providing a technician to help set that kit up and make sure that proof of concept's successful. But definitely from a distributor's point of view, we obviously want to look after both parties. But as I said right at the start, you guys are the ones that pay the bills. You guys are the ones that make us successful. Without you and your trust in your business, we wouldn't be here. So, we want to support the xSP all the way.
So I guess another question for the room here. So many of you will do business with the people up on the panel. Many of you, the people on the panel and their companies will be new to you. What could the people on the panel here do to reduce the friction to you doing business with them? How can they make it easier for you to say, yeah, I'm willing to take a look at that and to start having a look at their products? Is there anything that springs to mind?
Barrier to entry. Some vendors with certifications and skill sets and investments required to even get a partnership route going. If you're at entry, the barrier to entry seems to be a big thing for us.
Yeah, so barrier to entry, certifications.
Can I counter that and say that obviously from a vendor's point of view, we want to make sure that it's the opposite for us. So we want to make sure that you guys are invested in our technology so it becomes part of your solution stack so you can go and sell it to your customers. Because otherwise you could just be, we might buy from you once every 6 months or so, and instead of having a nice integrated that partnership that you want. From our side, we would say we would like you to invest so that we can show you more commitment. We can show you the discounting and so on. I'm technical, I'm not commercial, I ain't gonna say I am. But from the vendor point of view, correct me if I'm wrong here anyway, we want to make sure that we develop that relationship better by having that investment in there. I understand what you're saying about low barrier to entry to say that you require us to have different people training, different people, et cetera, et cetera. But if you look at it from the other side, the more thing that is we want to develop the partnership a lot better. Therefore, we're asking you to devote some time and devote some energy, and you're going to get a much better outcome at the end. Now, obviously, it depends on the vendor, but that's just my point of view from training lots of people over here.
Nick, I could see you're passionate about this. Andy, Olivia.
And I think it's a bit of both. I think in this day and age, we're getting to an environment now in the xSP market where customers and even our partners believe things should be plug and play. Okay, should be just to be able to switch something on and it just works. So the access to entry to vendors now, depending on what you want to do, so what level you want to get to. So if you want to be entry level and you want to deal small scale, you want to do something, you plug it, you install it, it works, happy days. If you then want to go to the enterprise layer, some more complex stuff, then there's a lot of complexity around that where there's going to need to be some education. There's going to need to be some investment. But we've got to have a bit of both. And I think partners will understand if they get the entry level, the only cost they have is time, really, to look at some webcasts and some videos on YouTube, just to get an understanding. Once you then see what you can get out of it, because it's a two-way street, because it's about your business plan, our business plan, that then gives you, I've got a really good solution here, customers like it, I'm making good margin, blah, 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 I'm beating the competition, actually now I want to invest in this and do something further and further. So I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah, Olivia,
I was thinking more of a soft landing for a time period, because you seem to not be able to get the benefits of a certain level without committing to that level.
No, you can.
Well, you can with yours, but
No, true. You're true.
I'm talking collective.
Okay, right, okay. Yeah. Okay.
That's all. It's just
Yeah.
a soft landing, or if you're new into a certain area.
Yeah.
good feedback. Olivia.
Yeah, no, I just echo some of Nick's points. You know, as a vendor, we have a zero entry barrier for that reason. Is, you know, you work out who's going to be a sell with partner to the gentleman from Kemp's point, you know, but you've got to be realistic that some people just want to sell one time and move on. So that's fine, we'll support them as well. That's why we have a distribution channel, is to support those partners who don't want to be deep into a product, but do have a one-time need. And then for the partners who say, no, I want this to be a core part of my solution, then we've got programs for you to come through. But I think a zero entry barrier is really important, and something that we find effective is you don't have to jump through hoops of fire before I'm going to allow you to sell my product. And I know some vendors do that. And indeed, I've worked at some who do that myself.
Yeah.
And I know people do find it very, very frustrating, because it's a big outlay of cost.
I want to dig into this a little bit further, but one question I do want to ask, and I'll start with you on this, Andy. So we've actually got something reasonably special here. So often in the MSP space, vendors don't play well together. We've got a situation here where this is an event put on not by one vendor, but a selection of vendors. Many of you are going to have sort of overlapping products and services and things like that. So Andy, if I turn to you, from Kaspersky's point of view, how do you play well with other vendors? What does that mean for the relationship with the MSP?
So for me, with technology today, it's all about collaboration. Something which the industry's never really done up until the last year, 2 years, is collaborate with competition. It's all about creating a stack, creating a proposition where you complement each other's technologies. But more importantly, it's about integration. So whether you be an integration tool for security, for access management, it's about being as flexible as possible to enable your partner to utilise you as little as much as they need to. Yeah. And that can be both financially, also technically as well. And coming back to your previous point around partnerships, we've recently been discussing this actually. So we have like a very much a tiered metal system, and pretty much our bottom tier, we're removing the technical aspect of it, because we believe in order to onboard someone, it takes time to learn technology. You don't just come on board and understand everybody's technology. So we were able there to support a service provider, for example, give them 6 months worth of financial costings banding based upon we'll look to be here in 6 months' time. But from a technical perspective, we will now empower you and enable you and onboard you over this period. Yeah. So hopefully I've tried to answer 2 or 3 questions there. But for me, it's about collaborating. It's about being as open as possible. And when you talk about transparency is probably the most important area, certainly within cybersecurity today.
Yeah.
You know, for what it's worth, and please do your own homework on this, as I always say, we've released the first transparency centre globally by any security company. And there's transparency happening. I think it's ourselves, Microsoft have it for traditional applications, AWS have it for communication. So yeah, it's about trying to have a balance of flexibility, transparency and empowerment.
Yeah. Jason, I'll turn to you actually. From your perspective, obviously you've got lots of vendors and lots of stuff going on here. How do you make sure that everybody gels together for the betterment of the people in the room?
So we started, in fact it was this lady's fault, we started selling
Blame me for everything.
monthly build services, but we have a portal where people can go in and procure hardware or software licensing, hardware products or software licensing, and they can pay for them monthly. And it started off with Liv's products. So we had a base, we found success in that base, and we moved on. What we then did was found that lots and lots of our other vendors also wanted to offer a monthly build subscription or monthly build license options. So we worked with Kaspersky, Kemp quite recently launched their offering, and we're going to work with Commscope Ruckus to launch into the marketplace with their offering too. I think I can't answer the question as probably as straight as you'd like it to be. How do we allow them to work together? I mean, first of all, I wouldn't introduce another backup and recovery product or disaster recovery product into the portal, because StorageCraft has taken that place. The same with Kaspersky. We had two products, two endpoint products in our portfolio. We've recently removed one so we can concentrate and focus on Kaspersky. We don't have an offering that Commscope have, and Kemp is pretty unique. So when we're going to offer monthly billed subscription services out for XSPs, we're going to try and keep the best of breed, or what we believe is the best of breed. That gives us focus to give to you. We can become experts in that product, and also the vendors will work with us in a much more collaborative and closer way to give you the services that you need. And also the feedback you give is very important. So we can feed back to the actual vendors if you think there's a change needed to the license model. And we've had that recently with Kaspersky. We've had a lot of feedback from the channel about how it was working, and Kaspersky made those changes. So I think, how do we help you? We go out, we select some products. We think they're the best of breed. We think they can help you make you more productive and more profitable. We then offer them out to you, and what we can do is we can definitely say we can offer sales and technical support for all those products, and we have very close collaborations with the vendors to make sure if there's any issues, we can resolve them for you very quickly.
Yeah, shall I add to that? In the industry where you make and sell access points and switches, I'm not saying I'm an anomaly, but solution selling is something that every vendor aspires to get to. Now, for me, I want to be in a position where I know enough about other vendors' products that complement mine, because most of the time, and a lot of the time, those products are the ones that are positioned with the customer. And I'll give you an example. So if we look at retail, so the retail environment isn't really about selling access points and switches to a retailer. It's about, how do I know more about the customer engagement? How do I know about who's coming into my store and shopping? There's only little bits of that we do, but we've got eco partners that we work with who have big analytics platforms, which is all about engaging with the customer. I don't sell that, but I talk to the customers about that because it pulls through my product. So what I can add is the expertise that we have in the markets that we sell into. We know what products sell to what people. And it's not always IT people. Sometimes it's marketing people. Sometimes it's store operations people. Sometimes it's asset managers. It's outside of IT, but they have big budgets. So we can bring our expertise to you to help, to collaborate, to sell more, to sell the right solutions to customers.
So we've heard from the panel here on what they think they're doing to make themselves more attractive to you in terms of how they work well as part of a solution stack. I want you to shout out honestly now, what are they not doing that you would like to see them do to work well with other vendors? Because this is a fairly rare occasion to see 5 vendors up here playing well with one another. What frustrates you about the multitude of vendors that you must work with, many of which are here in the room today? Shout it out to them.
RMA
Yep. Say again?
RMA process.
The RMA process.
Right now,
In what way?
well, when we do all the big groups and stuff, it flies off really quickly again. They try to take it back to send something back to all.
Yeah. So we've got RMA process, and I want to dig into this a little bit more about what makes you attractive as a good partner for MSPs. I heard mention of integrations earlier. Is everybody happy with the integrations they've got with their vendor partners at the moment? All running smoothly and nicely?
You'll never get to one pane of glass with it.
Yeah. So that's interesting because John's just said we'll never get to one pane of glass, and this is the vision for the MSP industry, isn't it?
I don't know why that's a vision. Because if you can't handle half a dozen panes of glass, something lacking, isn't there?
Yeah.
I know that it's an aspiration to have a single pane of glass.
Yeah.
And I think,
when you think about it, I don't know why.
and I think sometimes, as a vendor, we're looking to partners to provide that single pane of glass, because we can do as much as we can around our own product set, which we endeavour to do. But where there are a multitude of vendors, we look to you to say, well, actually, as an MSP, I can give you a single pane of glass, so I can either invest into a portal which takes APIs in, because most of us have APIs of stuff going out, is how that gets presented in moving forward. But again, it's a collaboration
In
thing.
a bigger organisation, everybody doesn't need to see the same things. They don't need
No, you're very true.
So there are specialists that might
Yeah.
be backup, there are specialists that might be firewall. They're not necessarily, they might need to know about it, but their routine day-to-day stuff. Neither do they need to see StorageCraft failing backups.
Yeah.
So we heard about RMA at the back there. We heard about integration. Some there. The one thing I'm surprised nobody in the room shouted out is to do with billing and making it easier. So actually, Andy, if I turn to you first of all, how do you make it easy for people to get on board the XSP model? And by that I mean monthly billing.
Yeah, so ironically, we were one of the first security vendors to actually have a monthly subscription. We just did it very, very badly. What we've learned over the last few years is understanding how XSPs consume technology. So we've got great technology, we can multi-tenant it, but it's about how do you want to consume it. So absolutely, monthly subscription is absolutely very, very key to a lot of business. However, there are still businesses today in the XSP market that still get paid up front. So they want to be able to put that down and actually pay for the technology. So we have flexibility in the sense that we do both monthly, daily, and annual billing, which is, from what I know, there's no other vendor that actually offers that from a security perspective. So it's about being flexible. And again, the reason why we are a bit late to market on this angle now is because we've tried to listen to the market. The reality is, how many organisations actually need daily billing? Unless you're a contractor, not many. So for me, it's a bit of a Me Too type of box. So for billing for us, it's about giving the flexibility back to the XSP, understanding how they want to consume it, but more importantly, how they want to then sell it onto their customers, whether that be for a monthly subscription or through a yearly subscription. But what I will say is, something else we're trying to bring into the whole subscription model is, I don't know whether this is actually been done anywhere else, but we're now enabling XSPs to pick a customer. So for example, we don't generally have public sector pricing. But what we're now doing for people that want to provide technology, security technology services, we're able to create a special price based upon that customer for a year, 2 years, 3 years or 4 years. And that's something we'll then create a contract, which then goes into their billing system based against that customer. So it's almost like deal reg for the XSP market.
Got it. Tim, I'm going to turn to you. So Kemp have got what could be an incredibly complex product. You've made it simple. I'll give you credit there. What about the billing side of things, though? Is that as simple?
Yeah, the approach that we've had is to be able to give you access to our tools to just take them and use them, download them. There's no entry fees, there's no starting block, just please access our licenses. And then what we do is we offer you the most flexible, and we are the most flexible in our market, in the application delivery control market. We've got the most flexible way to deliver our licenses. You can take them as perpetual, you can take them as subscription, you can take them as monthly SPLA, or you can take them also as a metered license. Every single way you can possibly think of cutting a license, we have it available for you. That can become quite complicated, which is why we turn to partners to help us with simplifying the access to those license types through portals. Log onto the portal, download your license, activate your license, and then we bill you for what you've used at the end of each month.
Yeah. Olivia, StorageCraft have been at the front of the XSP, the managed service model, for many, many years now. What are you doing to stay out from what are MSPs asking you in terms of billing and making life easier for them?
To be honest, people normally say, please keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
There was a big fear for a while that we would take away that model or, we would make a change. No, absolutely not. It's critical that people have that instant access. So anything that StorageCraft bring out will always be available in the MSP and the perpetual model. So we do offer both because Andy's quite right. There's a lot of partners out there who still want to consume in an upfront PO. So flexibility's always been a big part of our business. We're now just about to introduce hardware as a service with Jason and the team. That's still pretty low adoption in the channel when it comes to hardware and software together, particularly in one product. That's probably a bit unique as it goes to market. So we will be working very closely with Exertis and helping people understand how that works and helping them consume it, because people are like, oh, well, no, I normally pay for my hardware up front, but I'm all right with this license in a monthly model. So to have both in one product and a monthly model is kind of our next step forward. Not something that's hitting the channel in March with our solo product, but very much it'll be, distributors are key to our success in all markets because they've got the tools and the enablement to then get the right build to the right partner.
Yeah, Jason, I want to come to you next. Who in the room here, show of hands, who provides hardware as a service at the moment? So it is fairly low adoption. For those of you who aren't doing hardware as a service, and to clarify what that would be, provide some sort of hardware to the clients, and instead of selling it to them, purchase order, and you receive the money for it, you charge them on a monthly basis for that piece of hardware. So yeah, for those of you in the room who are not doing hardware as a service, why not? What's the barrier there? What scares you about doing hardware as a service?
So if you get a PO for 100 grand,
yeah,
makes sense to get a PO for 100 grand, right?
Right. Anybody else would like to move to the service model?
You need to get the customer to reflect the commitment you're making to the vendor.
Yeah.
Because you'll be exposed if you don't.
Yeah. Brilliant. I want to dig into that a little bit further if I can, because this is the number one pushback that I hear from people. They say, well, if I sell a service, a hardware as a service into a client, and the client after 6 months says no, or the client goes bum, or whatever else, we're the ones left holding the can. I can see that's a real fear to people, isn't it? So I guess my question to you, how do you alleviate those fears?
Well, we don't. But the interesting thing is we started off, so the first products that we sold were firewalls, and we started it in 2015. And Sonic Wall, the vendor, came to us and said, you've got to sign this contract. And it said, Exertis will pay for 12 months. So, that first 12 months, I'm guessing is covering the cost of their hardware. And then after that, we just carry on charging the same price. It's actually more expensive. And that's the first piece of feedback we got. So, if a device was 1,200 quid, they charge 100 quid a month. And then in month 13, they charge another 100 quid, and another 100 quid, and another 100 quid. And we had big questions around that. We didn't think this was going to take off at all. 5 years later, we've got around 4,000 firewalls out there, and we're selling more every day, and more resellers and XSPs are coming on board to consume the firewall in that way. Gives you a lot of flexibility when you think about it. So, first of all, answer the question on the 12-month term. On some of the products, unlike Andy's products, which are software licensing, the turn on, turn off, with hardware, there is going to be a bit of commitment. But I can tell you from my experience now, there are very, in fact, I can think of 2 instances where a reseller came back to us and said, this piece of hardware's, come back, that my end user went bump, my end user pulled the contract, can I send it back? And, in those 2 instances, we went to the vendor and we helped them out, okay? There's a lot more instances though where, that has happened to a reseller and you can simply just repurpose the hardware again with a new customer. And that tends to what happens. So again, from experience and 5 years of it, of doing this with a piece of the hardware's out there on a contract. You might have 3 months left, you might have 6 months left, you might have 1 month left. Resellers just repurpose it somewhere else, and it's quite as simple as that.
Yeah. Nick, go ahead, Jeff.
So one of the things that as a predominantly hardware vendor, we get asked this all the time about how can we give a service to a customer or a partner which alleviates risk for the partner, alleviates risk from us, but puts the risk back on the customer. And it's been around for donkey's years, leasing or subscription and stuff like that. So in this last 2 years, I've probably seen more customers going down the leasing route where the partner throws all of their managed service in for a 3 to 5 year contract, but the customer has the lease. So the partner gets paid up front. So your order for 100K, you get the whole lot up front for 5 years. Happy days. Yep. Customer pays for it monthly over a 5 year period. Now that the liability then is between the customer and the leasing company, not us, not you, so we all get paid. So it cuts that risk out, and I'm seeing more and more of that in the MSP market where customers don't have the capex to be able to buy something, but they see the OPEX version. Bearing in mind, Meraki, that's their model, right? That's their model, and they've been very successful at it for the last 5 years, selling a subscription-based wireless as a service model. And they ask for you to say 1 year up front, 2 year up front, 3, 4, 5. They don't bill you monthly, typically. They ask for it up front, but it's a subscription service. And if you don't pay for it, it don't work. Simple as. With a lease, there are lots of different ways of doing it, and we're seeing more subscription-based. So coming back to like the Gem portal, you pay for 12 months, and if you want to keep it going, you just keep on going. You can refresh. You can do a whole bunch of stuff. But we're seeing a lot more MSP, xSP now looking at how we can take our financial services, wrap it into the whole solution, but the liabilities with the customer now, not the partner. Don't get me wrong, if you want to take the lease out as yourselves, as a partner, fine. The biggest challenge, I think, has all been about adding additional services in. So we did a deal last year with Bernard Matthews, turkeys for Christmas. They're still in business. Now, the financial services we did with them was £2 million, but only 700k of it was our stuff. Another 700k was Fujitsu, and the other 400k was professional services, installation, and we all did it through Exertis. So the customer took the ownership of the lease. The partner got a 5-year managed service contract with a customer with a payment up front. They were happy. So there are ways of doing it.
Yeah. And just to expand on it a little bit, I mean, from what Nick said, it's just all about options. The options are there. The option to buy it up front, as she said, so is there. So if you want to do that, you can do that. The option to buy it through a leasing company, so you get your money up front, is there. And if you want to buy it on a subscription monthly basis and just keep paying, the option's there. I think, how many of you guys, just ask a question, how many of you guys have had a piece of hardware and the customer's dropped out of the contracted period? And what did you do in your case? Just repurchase it, yeah.
What if you can't get that kit back?
Sorry?
If you can't get that kit back, you've got hardware at a customer site.
Yeah. That's an issue. You have to suck that one up. Yeah. And then I see. And what's interesting about this conversation is, I was where you were. I've got to admit, we were right at the start of this journey, and we go out with the price list and go, there's your regular price list, there's your monthly price list. The first thing every reseller said was, that's more expensive. And we're like, yeah, but you can buy it this way if you want to buy it. And they go, that's more expensive. And you go, yeah, well, you just buy it this way. 5 years later, I still can't get my head around how many people just sign up for it. And I think it's maybe because it suits some people, because that's how their business runs. I think also, if you're starting up an IT business, so if there's a startup or a bit of a cash flow problem, it's an easy way to get the products you need, to get them out to your customers, to start grow your business and make yourself more successful. But I don't have the answer to it, and perhaps come around and chat to you guys afterwards. But lots and lots of people are signing up to this monthly subscription model, and I'm really interested to find out what's driving that. So maybe we get some feedback on that later.
So we've been doing site as a service for significantly longer than site while.
Yeah.
It works for us. It's great. We can buy. Now, thinking into that question about startups. The danger I see in in vendors offering everything as a service, how do you manage the risk of the charlatans with no money and no background opening up and sort of just reporting to offer services that are established?
So for the benefit of the rest of the room, John's question was, as a service, great, but how do the vendors assess the risk of charlatans just setting up shop
in your back bedroom,
and selling all these as a service and maybe lowering the bar for the entire industry?
It's a great question. I think, sorry to jump in there. So first of all, we're billing them, and they have to have a credit limit with us. So they have to be properly credit checked and vetted. Normally, if there's something that's a big risk, the ladies in the credit control department, or the people in the credit control department, excuse me, they will absolutely ask me to send a BDM out. So, it'll be Matt or Dom or Sam or somebody to go and visit that person to just check them out, make sure they're real, make sure they have a premises and they're not dealing out the back bedroom. But it absolutely is.
I'll give you an example. So it's good to storage craft. In 2014, maybe, we did a lease deal. We leased 200,000 quid worth of data center equipment and perpetual StorageCraft license, which actually we sweated down, and we got our money back. So all of a sudden, you can do StorageCraft cloud services. So your entry point for StorageCraft is nada, nothing. Whereas when we did it, you know, it was well, right loaded to launch that as a service.
Yeah, so we still, anyone signing up to us still has to accept all of our terms and conditions and our agreements. But, you know, one of the many drivers to moving, as you know, we did to the more traditional distribution model is that very point Jason made. You know, we are not a credit services facility. We're not a bank. These guys are expert at it. They've got people in their business who are certified and qualified to do it. You know, it's not just the girls in accounts, yes. You know, they're certified people.
Slap that man down.
It just happens they are.
All the clever girls.
Yeah, they are.
Who this is a real full-time job for, to go and do these checks, because you can push as many terms and conditions as you want down on a bit of paper, but you know, you're right, if you're dealing with a charlatan, doesn't matter what's on the bit of paper, but we have to have some checks and balances, and that's what distribution provide for us, because you know, not only do we not have the qualified experts, we don't have the people to be going and making those checks to protect you as a real partner as well, that somebody doesn't set up in their back bedroom, to the point earlier about programs and getting some sort of reality check on if you're a real partner or not. You know, we need to reality check who people are to protect our other
I
partners.
suppose we just want to protect our investors.
Of course you do.
Yeah,
of course
yeah.
you do.
You know, it's an interesting point. Like if I touch about every one of these guys here, none of them want to offer anything monthly, because there's how do I get paid? Because there's always that like confusion about how people get paid. There's also cannibalisation of their existing business, because if everyone swapped to a monthly bill tomorrow, then they'd never hit a target for, you know, there'd be a crossing point on that graph, but, you know, for a while they wouldn't hit the target. So none of the guys really want to do it, but if there's sort of a driver, I mean, just to throw it back at you, is it something that your end users are asking for? Are they asking for monthly bills, easy to understand, easy to consume, like Sky, your phone, gas, electric, pay for monthly, or is it you guys that are pushing that agenda? Because from where I am as a disty, there's definite feeling that resellers are asking for more products this way, or is it us as an industry pushing it your way? I don't know the answer to that.
I think end users will take what you give them, to be honest. Because
Okay.
you are trusted, that's that trusted advisor relationship. They'll, you know, you tell them, I mean, when we sell them AV, half probably don't know which AV it is, they just know it's a managed AV product. Whether it be, so, you know, it could be Kaspersky, it could be whatever. They're not fussy about it. They're probably about what the cost is at some point.
Well, let's ask for a show of hands from the room here. Who would say the majority of their revenue, so I'm talking 70% plus, is from recurring revenue? Maybe three or four in the room. Who is at the other end of the scale, maybe about sort of 25% of their revenue? Yeah. A few more. So I mentioned that I used to run a managed service provider business. Sold that business about 10 years ago. We made a massive shift from selling solutions to selling services based on what you were talking about. Nick mentioned about capital expenditure. Clients didn't want to pay, didn't want to write big checks for servers and this, that and the other. They wanted to buy a service from us on a monthly basis. And my business rocketed as a result of doing that. So I'm intrigued, you know, what's perhaps stopping more of you in the room from going down that service route? Is it to your point, you like the big fat check, the 100K? That's quite nice.
I've been a pay for it monthly. I've been a man who's pay for it monthly. I don't buy it.
And to John's point, you know, is it what you tell the customer?
It is. And I think it's also going back to what I said it earlier, it's about working with you to get that stickiness about collaboration, because you're saying about the charlatan in the back bedroom coming up and selling a service, but can they deliver the same service that you're offering, which has got all these other bits plugged in?
One thing that never ceases to amaze me in the IT industry when you're dealing with end users is, quite frankly, how crap you have to be to lose your gig.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Get so many chances.
The amount of mediocrity
I know.
in terms of service levels.
It's complacency. Complacency, unfortunately, loses business.
You are in roles of trusted advisor. They worry about the risk of exposing themselves by changing providers.
Or do you think part of it is that as vendors we make up so many new terms and acronyms that they just trust you because actually it's all moving a bit too fast and they're not sure whether they should be on this hyper-converged highway or not?
Well, here's the
They're
question,
still on
actually.
the
Equally so, just
Please.
our relationships with vendors is equally sticky because even if I thought Kaspersky was the best thing to slice bread, the thought of unlocking 2,000 endpoints and reinstalling just the worst.
It's a lot of work involved.
And John's just, you just read my mind exactly what I was going to put to you. So there is, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands here or people to shout out. Every one of you is probably using a ton of different security vendors.
Yeah.
Kaspersky think they are the best, but so does everybody else.
Yeah.
So the question for you is, how do you differentiate yourself? And to John's point, how would you unseat a competitor? Because this is it's a pain in the backside to move from one vendor to another.
So, it's actually a very good question. It's perfect
I'll
timing.
go around and do them all for you.
No, so, well, be good service to offer. No, realistically, when you're looking at technology, now, whilst I'm a commercial salesperson, technology has to be reliable. So, for what it's worth, Kaspersky, we're a 4,200 person organisation. Every 2 and 3 people is actually involved in the technical development or R&D within our organisation. So, like salespeople get commissioned based upon the sales they make, our technical people, our developers, are commissioned by Eugene himself based upon the amount of independent tests that we enter, but more importantly, the amount of top 3s, and then they get commissioned or KPI'd on the first places. So something called top 3, and please, again, do your own homework. More than happy to send a note out on this. We have so many different types of technologies and engines that we work in that his aim is to test as many different technologies independently as possible. So it's down to the independence. It's not down to the typical vendor that has vendor A, vendor B, and vendor C, which generally is internal testing. So hopefully to answer that your question, it's about credibility. And our credibility as an organisation comes through those independent test labs.
We do it.
So that's how we generally get shortlisted.
Kemp do it slightly differently as well in the way that we approach the market. There's plenty of load balancing solutions that are out there. There's open source solutions that you might want to use. There's also the localized within the AWS and Azure locations. So load balancing is something that businesses are going to be using. We want to simplify that. So what we're not coming in today to do is go, stop using everything that you're already using and switch over to Kemp. So what we do with our management tool that we provide, we've gone through the research and the development to be able to provide you with our own central management tool that will manage our products along with other products. So if you're already using load balancing technology from HA Proxy, if you're using it in AWS or you're using F5 or Citrix, we will be able to bring those into the management console that we deliver, with the likelihood that over time you'll be going, Kemp's absolutely amazing, I'll switch those others off and I'll start using Kemp. But at the same time, it's not a plunge deeply into everything that we offer. Get used to us, get a relationship with us and let us show you what it is we do. And hopefully over time, you'll see all those extra features we deliver and the approach will be
So just to be
simpler.
clear, your pane of glass allows you to manage other vendors.
Our competition solutions. Yeah.
I like that.
We make a lot of noise about that because for those of you using the likes of HA Proxy, the difficulty you're going to have is seeing what's going on with it.
Yeah.
Why did it fall over? When did it fall over? Did you know it fell over?
Yeah.
Well, our management tool can allow you to see that information and simplify those steps that you're taking, and then complement that with the Kemp.
I love that